Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week, we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For the Record. We're on episode 55 at the tail end of season 3. And today we have a innovative, unique, just really cool concept we're going to bring to you on For the Record. A dear friend of mine, Brandon Mullen, is going to join us today. He is a fractional practice manager, which is a whole new world for us in aesthetics. But what Brandon's able to do for Aiyana Atelier, which I love the name, although very hard to spell, able to do there to help grow that business, to bring processes, to bring streamlined operations, to now scale to a second location and do all of this really fractionally, living in a different place and going back and forth and having a huge impact. And he's fresh off of his Spa talk with an audience of 300 people where he made hopefully a big splash in the industry all about the fractional practice manager idea. But he's here today with us, and I am so delighted to have my dear friend on. Brandon, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate you asking me to be a part of this.
Well, I feel like since the day I met you, you've been just, you're a different breed, right? You think about things in a different way. You think about things, how do you solve the problem? What is the problem? You just attack things with a unique approach. And so I love what you're doing, and I want to hear all about it. But you also are a nurse, which I didn't even mention you spent a couple decades in healthcare, so you have a nursing background. So give our audience just a little bit of an idea of who you are, what you do, and how you got to this point managing clinics.
Absolutely. So I started out with my diploma in nursing in 2009. I did a couple years of critical care, bedside nursing, and I really did enjoy bedside, but I sort of got more into the business mentality. I worked for a care management software and did care management for transplant case management. And that was for an insurance company for about 5 years after that. And I slowly kind of just went into this path of more business. I liked technology and I liked training. So everything kind of married together in about 2018 when I worked for a software company. I was an account exec and did some training for them. And I really enjoyed it for the time that I did. And then 2021 came around, the company got sold, and I just happened to be at the same time when Ashley Carmen opened up Aiyana Atelier. She started in January of 2021 with the first Alexandria location. And after about 3 months, she was solidly booked and she was losing her mind. She's like, I need all these things done. I need help with SEO, website, patient management, client experience. And I said, well, I'll give it a go. So that's kind of the elevator speech of my nursing career since 2009 and how I made that jump.
Well, we had Ashley on last season talking really about, your impact on her business and how she's growing and scaling and just the magnitude of being at that point. She was the only injector. She was kind of the sole practitioner in the practice. I think now that's obviously grown, but in doing all that, people hear the word fractional, fractional CEO, fractional HR manager. We think about those things as like corporate jobs. So how do you bring that idea into a clinic, which again, not a giant clinic, this idea of being fractional is so new to all of us. So give us an idea of kind of what that means and what your day-to-day looks like for Ashley.
Absolutely. And just to take a step back, the reason why I'm fractional is that I work half the time and I travel between now the two studios in Virginia, in Alexandria and Middleburg, Virginia. And then the other half, I'm in my home office right here doing website management and 1,000 other things. But, how that really came about was because I met Ashley and we had a really strong friendship. We met when we opened up a community hospital here in Pittsburgh, PA back in 2012. And she went to DC because her husband's job took her there. And after she got her foot in aesthetics and really wanted to create and cultivate her own brand and experience, that's when she developed Aiyana Atelier. So, I used my kind of tools and in my toolbox that I've learned through the little steps that I've had in my career to really kind of define what fractional practice management is. So when I'm on site, my activities look completely different. I'm the front desk. I am the property manager. I try to cultivate those vendor relationships and get them on site. We have our meetings. I can hang pictures on walls. I do all of the things. And then when I'm home, I do all of the things that I really don't need her face to face for. So I have client calls all routed to one phone system that I can look at, and I can fill holes in anyone's schedule. I can, do a lot of the things that I don't need to do while I'm sitting there. I can, do so much more patient experience when I'm there versus when I'm at home.
Well, I think about that, what you're saying about like the website, SEO, all the things that you have to do that you don't need to be physically there to do, right? Like that's not not required. But I also think about, patient experience, being out of the clinic, client calls, you get them at your house. I think there's actually a benefit to not being in the middle of the chaos trying to solve someone's problem. Like I can imagine it's much more peaceful for you, if that's the word I would use, to be doing some of those more escalation type activities when you're not physically on site, because you can, again, you're in a quiet room, you can think for yourself and like not be in the middle of all the activity going on in the clinic. I don't know, do you feel that way? Like you can get just so much more done when you're not there?
Oh, 100%. Whenever I am there, she's always telling me like, adding things to my list, which is fine, but my ADD just lets me go 8 different places. So unless it's in a task, then I kind of forget about it. But when I'm at home, I can have that conversation in quiet. There's nothing going on in the background. I can go a little deeper if I need to with clients and explain things or procedures. So that's when, my nursing background and my experience personally and what I've experienced from being around many aesthetic providers in the past 2 years gives me that kind of advantage. So I can speak to, what it's like getting first time Sculptra or, getting your talks for the first time. So we've had it done quite a lot, but, I can really speak to that. So, when I'm at home, there's a lot of advantage to having that peace and quiet. And that was honestly one of the first things that I did was find a phone system that routed all the calls, because we'd be in the studio and literally Ashley's by herself. She runs around, she injects, she checks out, she rebooks, she sells skincare. She does all of that and still juggles her schedule, but she has no time to answer the phone. So I was like, if I'm calling in and I don't get anyone and I have to get a call 1-2 days later, that's not a great first impression for someone that we're trying to convert.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how she's doing it all by herself. Like, do you think at some point you'll bring a front desk person into the mix, or do you like it, the way that it is now, or it's just basically it's you and it's her?
I would appreciate having a front desk. I really do like having someone else physically there. And I think that our new injector, Angela Burleson, who is spearheading the Middleburg office, she was there for a 4-month residency, kind of training side by side with her. While that was nice, we don't have room physically in our Alexandria location for 2 injectors. But if we had a front desk, I think that would be great and alleviate a lot of the pressure. So is it something on the table? Probably. It would be nice. And just from a safety perspective, I really, you never know what happens in this world today. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if just a second person was there.
Yeah, we have to think about that now, right? And even just like if something were to happen to Ashley and there's patients there, there's so many things you have to think about. But you just came off your first big Talk at Am spa, which congratulations, by the way. I heard it was awesome, and you, I'm sure, crushed it. I didn't get to be in the room, but I've heard great things about it. And you talked a lot about systems and processes, and I gave a similar talk, I think, in a different time, but about systems, processes, and people. So I know that you and I are both very aligned on project management software and just getting things automated and workflows. So what are some of the tools that you're using now that, a practice manager coming to you saying, Brandon, I am dying, I'm overwhelmed, help me get my life together? What are things that you recommend? Because you also do a lot of consulting as well, to get, the quickest wins or the easiest wins first to kind of get things in order for a practice manager.
Absolutely. I think really keeping track of tasks and really knowing who has accountability on the next step of that task is very important. We use Asana that was recommended by a friend. Initially, we were doing this Google Note thing, but we were changing colors and checking boxes, and it became way too confusing. So Asana has been a lifesaver, and it truly is a project management task software, but we use it probably a lot lighter than what it's intended for, but it really serves a purpose because you can assign the accountability, you can track and trend. If you complete the task, it doesn't ever go away. So it's there for like a record. It's like a sticky note that never goes away. So that has honestly been a lifesaver. And for me being, type A, Aries, ADD, like I need that visual component too. But I also need the ability to assign and dole out those tasks if I need any of the girls to do something or for me to do something in the future. So that for me has been amazing. I would say another thing is to utilize the Apple functionality of shared notes and shared photo folders, because we do a lot of our marketing from the pictures in the studio. And when I'm there, I usually, I have one separate phone that I use, and I kind of just take a bunch of pictures in case I need it for product and for our website or Google business updates. But I can also be like, hey, Angela, can you do this one thing in the studio real quick? And she doesn't have to text it to me. She just adds it to the share drive, and it's something that I can reference in the future. So those are the two major things. In addition to our phone system, we use Grasshopper to route all of the calls to one phone, but I also have the flexibility to, I could route it to Tiffany, I could route it to me, I could give it to Steven Soar, like whoever's on our little network, I can pick which line I route to what. So that really helps out too.
Yeah, because we talk about this a lot here. The phone calls that go unanswered, that's a patient that drops off, or a lead that you don't get, right? So if the phone doesn't go answered and there isn't like a callback thing, it's an automated function of some sort, or, a text back thing, they just kind of poof, they go away and you don't have them anymore. But I think about the Asana thing. We use ClickUp here. We're obsessed with ClickUp. We use it for everything. It's very similar to Asana. We use that for years. And I will tell you, like marketing activities, like when the newsletters go out, when you're posting, a thing on Canva, or you're making something for Instagram, just to have someone be accountable to something and to know it's like they're next in the queue to work on it, or they're next in the queue to approve it or edit it, is so incredibly helpful, because then nothing gets dropped, right? There's always a path. Everyone can see where it's going to and coming from. And so you all know where you are all the time. I think here, when you're so busy, you just think, I'll get it all done, but you won't get it all done. You'll forget something. And so I'm sure that you guys assign each other tasks, and we use it here to help us all kind of stay on track and on flow. But that's the one thing people don't buy in this industry is project management software, and you should definitely go get some. Jira, Asana, ClickUp, Monday Doc, any of them. Just go find one. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. And it's very cost effective. I mean, you can honestly use the free version and still get what you need out of it. But we upgraded to premium for a little bit more functionality. But it's really, I mean, the time value add alone of, completing tasks and just having them be assigned to one person and having the follow-up. I'm a little weird that like I have sort of a visual memory when it comes to the task, and I'll name it a certain thing, and I know when I need to reference it in the future to just search for that name and it'll come up. So that's kind of how I find a lot of my activities that I need to reference later on.
If you make task lists of any sort, it formalizes that process for you, then it keeps the record over time, right? Like you mentioned, it's always there. You can go back and see, I did this already once. How did I do it that time? And you can go back and see all the information. And we use it for support tickets here for technology. It's just such a diverse thing. But kind of thinking through the project management part of it, I know that you're a big systems guy, and you have to be because you're not physically on site. What are some of the processes and things that, you look at as a practice manager coming into the industry? You've been here, 2 years with Aiyana. What are things that you think that we're missing, or that you wish someone had said, hey, you should have a process for this. You should have some kind of a SOP for this thing to get it done? Because I feel like people come into this industry who don't understand maybe aesthetics so well, but they're great at managing businesses. This is like a whole different ballgame when you come into aesthetics. So give us an idea of like how you look at SOPs and processes and things.
Absolutely. So when I worked for the clinical software company, I created SOPs and kind of step-in actions for how people had to click through the software. So I kind of use that to create SOPs, because everyone, if you're going to have, especially now, I think this has become a lot more important because we have a second location. If you're going to have that same brand experience everywhere, everyone needs to be doing the same thing in the same way. So even if it's answering the phone, like it may seem a little, elementary, but you have to be like, okay, answers the phone, says this in this way. Like we have a script for that. And we build them manually, but That's what works the best. And I think for compliance reasons too, even when, you're injecting, you should be injecting in the same way, having the same dilutions and the consistency across the board. So as we continue to scale and hopefully replicate this solo injector, solo provider model, I'm just going to keep going with it. And I just make SOPs as I go on, even when I'm like pulling my monthly reports and doing my KPIs and all that. I just, and more for me too, because sometimes I forget I'm doing so many things. I need to write it down for myself. So it's more of like, okay, this is, more, it's as much as it is for anyone else than it is for me. And, eventually I'm going to have to replicate myself, which is a terrifying thought, but, I'm going to need it for the other me that's going to have to help manage Middleburg. So, the long-winded answer is, I make them manually, and I just pretend like if I had to instruct you to go in and do it blindly, like you should be able to follow my steps and complete it successfully.
Yeah, I think people, well, I'm like you though, whenever it's my thing, I'm the worst. I help build them for AR all the time. And we have all these beautiful SOPs, and I'm the person who never follows them, right? Because I'm chaotic, it's busy, I'm in the middle of something else. Like, oh, I'll get to it in a minute, and I just don't follow it. So I think that's part of it too, is like, if you're going to replicate yourself, I think about if I were to replicate me, I've got to really like dig deep and dive in and really follow my own SOPs, because you can never replicate my chaos. But I think what you mentioned about now at the second location is you can't replicate chaos. I mean, you've got to get it buttoned up to go to the second location. So in doing that, so in building the second location, knowing that you have a single provider model, you're not at the front desk right now, but hope maybe soon. There is only one of you. How did you think about the expansion of that? And even from Ashley training another injector, how did you guys really get everything together? I feel like that's, one is one, two is a million. It's just like having children, right? The second one's just exponentially harder to even think through how do we duplicate this experience, the client experience, the business experience, your management experience to a second location without everyone like losing their mind.
So, love the insanity that is, my life. I always say blessed to be stressed, but honestly, the first thing for Ashley and for the brand was to find the person. We needed that perfect injector, because basically being that solo injector, solo provider, it's almost like owning your own business. So we needed somebody that had the drive, the passion, the skill, and the independence and autonomy to, given this setup, given this brand, given the building, everything, all of the tools that you need, can you be successful? And we needed to find that person first. And luckily we did that. And everything else honestly fell into place. We found a location that was near her home, that happened to be in an area that was in need of a little bit of a different experience. So we did a little bit of research. Not as much as we probably should have, but we did enough, and we're very happy with the decision. We love the location, and it fits the brand and the vision that is currently in Alexandria. So it's cute, it's quaint, it's warm, it's inviting, it's very small town. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of new home construction coming very soon in the next couple of years. They're starting now. So we're looking forward to making a name in Middleburg, but everything else kind of fell into place after that. We found one property at first that we fell in love with. It just didn't work out. And I'm a strong believer in everything happens for a reason. So there was another building that came up for lease. It ended up being a complete disaster in the beginning, but Ashley has a great vision and sense. So, she signed it and we made it work, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It features nearly everything that we have in Alexandria. So, we have a scented flower wall that smells like live eucalyptus. It's gorgeous. Same thing there. We have the same exact colors to be very, synonymous with what's in Alexandria. But, all of that stuff just kind of came naturally, and we duplicated it. And, the other really key thing was when we were going to open the space, because we were on the fence about trying to rush it and open it in Q4 2021, or I'm sorry, 22, but it didn't work out that way. And again, everything happens for a reason, because Angela was able to sit side by side with Ashley for a little over 4 months and do a residency. And it really helped to drive in all of the kind of brand standards that we've now have. Like she was able to talk the talk. She was able to learn all of the packages and how everything is priced and really get that ingrained in her. And we had a lot more time for her to start to absorb all of the products that we carry, both skincare lines. We got in-depth education on that. It was a really great 4 months. And like I said, it was great when I was there too, because I had more time to do the things that I needed to do, and I could go out in the community and do a little bit more engagement. But really those, it was people first, place second. We can build anything where we need to. So replicating that brand experience was really the most, that was the easiest part. And everything else just kind of fell into place.
Well, I love what you said about that she came and sat with Ashley, for 4 months and really learned. Because I think in a second location, if you don't have an established location, like you're building it for you're for the first time, like you're doing, right? This is the first time you're building a second location. There are no things already in place there, right? There is no tribal knowledge or organizational knowledge that already exists. You'd have to go do that. Like I can't imagine opening a second location with a whole new team that I'm going to seed that location, and no one's there to help make sure that it's on track with what we do at our main flagship store. There has to be some kind of connection there, and I think a lot of people throw these med spas up quickly, like they franchise or they do change. They just keep building and building and building, and they have a hard time keeping the experience consistent because they don't have someone there saying, "Come sit with me, learn with me, be beside me, train with me." And then you can go on your own, still for me, but you can go on your own, and you know the brand inside and out. You know how to be part of the brand and represent the brand, because people are building things right now, as you know, fast and furious, and some of them come up as fast as they come back down. And I think there is a big risk at scale. So if you go to a third location, I'm guessing the same kind of thing, right? You'll have that person come sit with either Angela or with Ashley, do the same kind of thing again, learn, grow, learn the brand, and then go on and see the third location and the fourth location. But what is your goal for that? I mean, do you see this being like a 15 location conglomerate, or are you going to take it slow and kind of walk into it? What's the plan?
Absolutely. And you made me just think of one thing. If that residency didn't happen, it honestly probably would have been a lot more work for me, because I would never want anyone to feel that they weren't supported. So I probably would be on site more than I am in the second location. But because she had that 4-month residency, she's very good being independent right now. And as the traction picks up, I think she'll be great. So really made me think about that. So, that being said, going to multiple locations, no, I don't think we're going to be like a 20 location kind of vibe. But I think, again, if we run into the perfect situation where Ashley meets an injector that she sees a drive-in and has a really good feeling in her gut that she could be a great spokesmodel for Aiyana and the brand, and would be good kind of replicating her business model, and it's the right place and everything makes sense, I don't see why we couldn't. The possibilities are endless. I've learned in my life to never say never. So, we could be a 20 location. I don't really see that though. I don't think that's really what she wants. She loves small and intimate and having some level of control over everything. So I think that'd be a lot. But sky's the limit, right? So we'll see.
You never know, as they say. But as I think through, we just came back from AmSpa. Obviously, you were there too, and they have a lot of practice management content. We have it at Aesthetic Next as well. There's game business, going on right now. But I feel like we don't do nearly enough for the practice manager role, or even the practice support staff role, to really prepare them for their job. We talk about injection technique. My gosh, the amount of training you can get on injection technique, it's just everywhere. But there's not a whole lot of resources for practice managers out there. So, what do you foresee as the way that we could help people to understand what and grasp what Because I do think if you manage a small practice, right? We have a lot of people on the show who manage these really large, giant practices. And it's a much different battle every day. You have the same amount of problems. They just look different if you're small, if you're big. But where do we start to build a network or a group or something that looks like an injector network, but it's for practice managers?
Absolutely. I feel there's a lot of focus on how do we find the injector, but I don't know why I keep doing this, air quotes, but I'm going to stop doing that now. But I really think there needs to be a focus and a drive on, kind of an association. When I was a nurse, I got my CCRN. There should be not a certification maybe, but some sort of networking group or kind of masterminds for practice managers. A lot of the feedback that I got from my talk was that, I'm new in this. I just don't know what to do. And you're being thrown to the wolves. And I know that feeling. That's how I willingly signed up to do this. I knew that was going to be the first 6 months, but there's so much to learn. So I think that, trying to connect us in a different way in some sort of network or mastermind group is the next step to at least getting people together and seeing what the interest is. I mean, the amount of people that came up to me and reached out to me on LinkedIn, I was very humbled and gratified because, I think like a lot of people, I have imposter syndrome. Like, what do I have to say? What do I have to offer? But, people found value in what I had to say. And it was very easy for me because it's just what I do. It's something I really like to share with people more. So I'm really hoping to work with great partners like you and AmSpa to kind of figure that out and see, how we can educate, how we can influence, how we can work together, so that nobody feels alone. They feel supported. They feel like they can talk to somebody if they have a question or if they want to validate or bounce something off of somebody, just like injectors do. The group that I work with, we roll in like a Tahoe full all the time into trainings and stuff. And they're constantly asking questions of each other. And, is this right? Am I doing this? Does this look okay? Should I, do this differently? So it's always good to have that kind of feedback loop with any person in this industry, from the front desk to the medical director.
Well, yeah, I get questions here all the time, like how should I pay my people? How should I look at performance reviews? Like things that they contact me for, which I'm happy to help. But I think to myself, if that were an injector saying, how do I, do a dental block? How do I inject this cheek? They would call another injector, right? You would just call your friend who's an injector or your injector trainer that you worked with before, and you would get the answer. You wouldn't call some like random third party stranger to say, hey, how do you, what do you know about compensation? So I do think that there's obviously a big gap in the industry because I'm getting questions about things. I'm sure you are as well. And so I do think it's high time where, the non-injector manager, so I think a lot of the meetings, and we're guilty of this too at Aesthetic Next, is the same person is both the owner, the manager, and the injector, and they're trying to bounce around to different content buckets and go different places. And so we kind of almost merge them all together into one kind of big thing. I feel like there should be a practice manager only group or meeting or something to say, this is a hard thing to do also. And when we're here, we're going to talk about how to be a practice manager, not how to be an injector, but just a practice manager, and focus on, is it writing SOPs? Is it finding the right software partner? Is it, how do you hire and fire and stay compliant with, all the laws and the rules? Should you do commission or productivity bonuses? Like all the things we talk about all the time, but really focused on people like us. Because I think about, even for you, a resume coming in, right? So someone wants to apply for a job as a practice manager. And I'm Ashley, I'm the injector owner. What do I look for in that resume? What are the transferable skills I should be looking for, or things that I want to make sure that person has? I mean, you're obviously Brandon Mullen, RN, so you have a nice advantage. You already have a medical background, which is, I'm sure, great for her. But let's say I'm not medical at all. What are the things in my resume that you'd want to see from me to say, yep, you're going to be a good practice manager. I'm going to hire you?
Yeah, that's a great point, because I've run into a couple of people that, I look for those kind of attributes to mold, because I don't think you honestly need to have a medical background. Is it nice? Yeah, but it's absolutely not necessary. I think that people need to be autonomous. They need to be willing to learn. They need to be humble. Like I'll clean a toilet any day. Nothing is above me. I will do anything. When I first started with Ashley, I said, I will do anything to make your life easier. And I should have probably put some guardrails on that, but I mean, that's just the kind of person that I am. I'm selfless. I am nurturing. I am diligent with following up. I can, really understand and read a room and understand if like a client looks like, they're way over their head with knowledge and, they need a little bit of time, like to help kind of manage those expectations. And I think you need to be someone that is a little savvy in business and just in life. To be able to network and make connections is a very big part. But also, I think you need to be a good manager. And I'm learning that with Angela. She's the first true employee. So, kind of traditionally managing, like you said, we don't have a ton of employees, but, just thinking, I really need to check in with her and do one-on-ones and make sure that, she's giving honest feedback and she doesn't need anything, or, feels free to ask a question if she has a concern and not let that bottle up. So, those are some of the qualities that I think just make a really good practice manager.
Yeah, I think people have no idea how hard it is to manage a business and also manage people at the same time. Like it's, we kind of ascribe here to the rule of it's Amazon's rule about the pizza boxes. One person should manage 5 to 7 people at max, and then at the 7th person, you have to have a new manager for that group because it's too many people for one human to actually manage. And so, I manage more of like the department heads in our business, and so we're pretty close to that 7-person mark. But I look at myself doing it, Brandon. I don't have time in many cases to manage the business all day and run the business, but then also have one-on-ones and touch points and be a cheerleader and tell them how great they're doing it because they are doing great. And like really be part of that. And I think if you're a new manager coming into this, leading people is a whole nother world. I mean, you can run an amazing business from like an operation standpoint and be a miserable people manager, or be great at people and be terrible at the business. You may not have both things. And I think it's hard to know that until someone actually comes in and works for you to really check out how they work with other people. But I don't know, you obviously have a few people who are working with now, but as you guys grow and you move and you change and you develop, you'll have to have other managers below you and departments and people, and it just grows out of control, and it's an exhausting task. So I commend you for already thinking through that and thinking through the things you have to have done to make all that work.
Absolutely. I don't know how you do it. Well, I know you don't sleep and you're an Aries, so I know like half of how you do it, but you're a powerhouse. You manage so much, and to even take on aesthetic next. And I don't know, you're amazing.
And I think I'm just crazy. I mean, those of you who are watching right now have dirty hair. I'm fresh off a plane from Clearwater from an event with Renuva. Like we're all everywhere all the time. I think the whole industry is just busy because we're booming, right? The industry is growing so rapidly that you have to kind of ride the wave right now because this is when it's all happening. And so I think there is a part of it. You mentioned imposter syndrome. I don't have that necessarily. I can't say no syndrome, right? We all have a thing that we believe in. Like I just can't say no to anyone. I'm like, I want to help everyone all the time. I want to be, a resource for everyone. And I think even in a manager role, you get to that point where you have to start saying no. And you have to start thinking to yourself, is my time worth it? Is it worth it for the practice overall or for the business overall? And if I do this thing, what can I not do because of it? And can I delegate that out to someone else? I think the delegation part is extraordinarily hard. And the more that you grow with a business, learning to get rid of the things or let go of the things that you've kind of built and raised on your own, your babies, it becomes very, very cumbersome and really tiring and sad in some cases to like let it go and let it, bless and release, as they say in the South. But I don't know if you have that issue. What is your delegation? Give us some delegation ideas of how do we learn to let go and move on to the next big task or challenge.
Well, I think that the biggest thing is having that trust. No matter what position you're in, you have to have that trust. And for the first year, Ashley was helping me and grooming me and, educating me on all the things. So she has to have that trust before I, independently put in that order for skincare or, text him about product needs or anything. But really, I think that to your previous point too, about protecting yourself, sometimes that's one of my hardest jobs is that, I have a hard time saying no. So, I'm pot calling the kettle black. But one thing that I try to do is to help Ashley not overbook herself, because now that she's getting busy and she's a gain trainer and an AMI trainer and a private trainer, like there are so many asks and she never wants to say no to them. Or that patient that's coming in and she's flying in from New York and needs injected this one night, she'll just throw her on. But, she has a wonderful husband and a dog and a life, and she needs to find that balance too. But I try to tell her, let me take these small things off your plate. You can see the visibility in a task or an email. So, she is very connected in that way. But, that's what I try to do, is to make her life just a little bit easier. And I think I'm doing okay. Always room for improvement, but I think it really just comes down to that level of trust and transparency that you have with any of your staff members that really helps a person feel like they can delegate and they can let go and they can go on vacation and they can take that day off. So, slowly but surely, she's getting a lot better with that. But, I'll get guardrails some year, but well, maybe in 2024.
Maybe we'll all work towards it. But, you mentioned before making connections with the industry, and I feel like you are a very connected person. Even like thinking about AmSpa, give us an idea of, first of all, how you got on a podium at AmSpa, because I think people are so confused about getting on podiums. Actually, someone came to our booth at AmSpa and said, I'm a really big deal, and how come I never get asked to be at Aesthetic Next? I'm a huge injector. I'm so important. And I'm like, well, because you never told me you wanted to come. Like I don't have feelers out for every single person in the entire industry of like who wants to come to Aesthetic Next. And so a lot of it's like raising your hand and connecting to people and saying, hey, I want to do this. I think I want to share with your audience. Like, let me be on your podium. But how did you make that connection to get on a podium at AmSpa? And what kind of advice would you give for people who are starting out in the industry saying, I'm not an injector, but I want to be in the conversation. I want to be at the table and be part of the decision making for the industry. How do they get to that table?
Absolutely. So whenever I first started with Ashley, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. So I researched professional organizations, and the first one I signed up for was AmSpa, and they had a boot camp in Orlando, and I learned a ton. And because of that boot camp, I learned about what the medical spa show was. So I signed up for that, and I ended up at Aesthetic Next too. So, I went to the medical spa show, and they sent a follow-up email, and they're like, hey, if you have something you want to talk about, send in your abstract. And I simply did that, not really expecting anything. But when I was at the med spa show, I made it a point to connect with anybody that I could. I'm a huge LinkedIn dork. I would take pictures of badges and stalk people on LinkedIn and see what they did. I was just very intrigued about their titles and where they came from. Were they all nurses? Were you business? What did you do before this? So that was really key. And I came to find out a little bit later that one of the client relationship managers that works for AmSpa, we were chatting it up. And it was really because of that chat that I had that she kind of cheered me on to get me a speaker role. So she really, I think, helped me to push my talk and my agenda forward. And this year when I went, I met a lot more people. Obviously, I had a little bit more access being faculty, and it was amazing. It's the same thing that you do. You send an abstract to me, and I filled it out too. So I think you really have to just have an idea for something that people want to hear. And in my case, I heard a lot of good things from practice managers, but I really felt like I just wanted to share my story coming from a little bit of a different business model. And apparently other people do too. So it really wasn't that hard. It's really just putting forth that energy and using these conferences as a networking opportunity. Like, yes, you guys have great parties, and the food and drinks are amazing, but it's also it's a job. You need to go around, you need to meet people, you need to foster those relationships. I love when I went to AmSpa and Aesthetic Next and saw the vendors that we work with. They have our skincares there, some of our devices and stuff. Like, it's great. So it's really, meeting people that you email all the time, and they're there in person. You're like, hey, this is great. So just kind of, building that relationship a little bit more. You never know what can happen after you meet somebody. So it's really just about that networking and putting yourself out there.
Well, you said something there that really just hits home for me about when you're there. It's like you're at work. It's your job, right? To go around and meet people and to network and connect. It always surprises me, and I'm not passing any judgment at all, but I see people who come to meetings, even in Aesthetic Next last year, and I'm getting pictures of them like in the pool having a cocktail at 2 PM. I'm like, you paid to come to a meeting with all these amazing people who are doing what you do that you should connect with, and you're choosing instead to go to the pool and like have a cocktail, or even in Vegas, like you're going to go gamble all day instead. Like, what did you come here for? And again, I'm not passing judgment because maybe there's reasons, but I think about it as like when you're there, that is your time to get noticed, to notice others, to be part of the conversation. And to your point, like meet all your vendors, meet people who you work with every single day that you've never met in person before. I don't know. I just think there's a part of it where the meetings are a chance to connect, network, and to make yourself or put yourself in a position to be noticed next time. Like what you did with LinkedIn. I met you on LinkedIn also. I think you LinkedIn me, and that's how we got connected a couple of years ago. You are a LinkedIn dork. You're not joking.
I'm not lying.
but it works. But I do think people have to take it seriously. I think the meeting advisors or meeting organizers, we spend a lot of time on the content, what to offer, CMEs, grants, all the things. And then to have people who come but then never actually come to the meeting is always like a gut wrencher for me. Like, you're already here, just come to the meeting, because the vendors pay a lot to be there. The faculty have obviously flown in. They've taken time out of their practices to come in. It's like they have good things to say. Come and listen and be part of it. But from a networking perspective with vendors, I'm curious too, with you being fractional, how that works. Like, how do you connect with the vendors? How do you meet with them on site when you're there? How do you really bring all of the vendor benefits and practice benefits to you as you're bouncing around all these different places?
No, it's a great point. So I do a mix of things. So if they need to chat with me, it's a lot easier whenever I am at home, obviously. I call them on my way down to Virginia. I have a nice 4-hour drive. If I'm not listening to podcasts, I'm usually like calling them. I think they have GPS on me because they always seem to call me when I'm on my way down too. But, I just talked to one today, and I'm very good at kind of keeping them in the loop of what we're doing. Like, for example, our Galentine's and grand opening in Middleburg next week. We obviously would love to have support in many ways. We want them on site. We want them to educate. This is a whole new crowd that isn't familiar with our services and our products. So, a lot of them are coming on site that can. Sometimes we have them come casually, but this time I'm like, what? We want you educating, not like super formally, but we want you in scrubs, not holding a glass of wine. We want you to talk about your products. We want you to talk about how they incorporate into the brand. And, they provide support in product and financial for the party. It makes things like this possible, but keeping them abreast of what we're doing, the specials that we're having, the promos, really helps them, sell more product to us because we're consuming it, because we're selling it, because we're doing good. So, it's really beneficial for everyone involved to really make your vendors your best friends. But when I'm there, it's always nice to know them on more than a professional level. We get intimate with their lives, and we want to know who they're dating and how their dog is doing. Like, it's not all just transactional. So we try to squeeze in as many dinners, lunches, 25-minute coffee breaks as we possibly can, because we have a genuine interest in them as a person. It's not just like an ATM transaction.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because I just came back from a national sales meeting. I was giving a lecture to sales reps about how to sell in aesthetics. I talked about that a lot. Like, you are the brand. You can have an amazing product that's so good and the best product ever, but that rep in the room, that rep who's calling and following up and offering services to you and being part of your life, because we work a lot, right? It is our life. They have a huge responsibility, because they've got to be likable, right? They've got to be like part of your practice when they're there. And so I think we often discount that. The rep, in many cases, I can love your product, and if I don't like the rep, I won't buy it. I won't work with you, because I don't want to work with people I don't like. I don't want to be part of that conversation. If I don't think that you're trustworthy, you're ethical, or you have an interest in really helping our practice grow or our business here at AR, I won't work with you, because we have choices now, right? We have so many choices. But to that point, how do you guys decide what you bring in? Because I find one thing that people really stress about when they have a small practice is inventory on the shelf. Like, how much do I stock? What if we have another COVID happen? Do I need to bring in all the brands or a couple brands? Because they all kind of do the same thing, but maybe they're a little bit different. So how do you decide like your inventory mix of services so that you feel comfortable with your like financial investment part of it?
Absolutely. 100%. The number one thing that grinds both of our gears is when someone comes in unannounced, because as you know, like when I'm not there, Ashley's injecting, she's running around like a nut. She cannot give you the time of day. So when you come in unannounced, that's strike number one. I don't care what you're selling. You could sell something cheap. It doesn't matter. Don't want it. Get out. I've learned to develop a sheet that is very informational. If it's something that we don't have, or if it's a laser rep or something, I'm like, here's a sheet of things to do. I want you to tell me about the product, like all the stats, who's selling it in the area, whatever. It's this whole laundry list of things. Ask me how many people have ever filled it out. Not one. No one has ever followed up on it. So those people that come in unannounced, you're done. When we're making a choice on something, it's not usually something, it's very rare that someone cold calls. It's something that we've either researched or there's a need, or they have approached it in a way that they presented it maybe like in an email or a short video that we can view on our own time, that might be beneficial. So that's kind of like how we find something new. As far as inventory, our studio in Old Town is so small. We do not have room for barely me, and thank God I'm skinny. So I love that a lot of brands are going to like having microsites or drop shipping to home, because we can carry a little bit on hand because we don't have room to store it. So that is amazing if that's a thing that's offered. Things like Skin Aid and Nutrafol supplements like that, that we love and we believe in. They have microsites and drop ship options like that. So I'm seeing a lot of things move to that. If it's something we do need to buy in bulk, then we obviously find creative solutions to store it. But for the most part, we just try to manage. But now that we have like the second location, we have a little bit more storage capacity. It's just a little bit farther away. But we just really try to be mindful of our consumption and look at how much we're selling every month, how much we're going through. I always try to track the popular services and packages to see what's trending in what month, what do we need to kind of ramp up for, what do we need to scale back on. So, making sure that things aren't getting dusty on the shelves, and it's basically nothing, but we try to be smart and calculated with what we carry on hand versus, trying to get something just because it's a good deal to buy a little bit more of.
Yeah, I look at like just-in-time shipping, right? Every vendor does typically like overnight or 2-day or 3-day, pretty quick shipping. I think about, you don't have this problem because Ashley's the only one in the spa right now, and obviously you'll have one person in your other spa, but when things are on the shelf in like mass quantity and you have lots of bodies in there, things start walking away. Like it's more to manage, more to count, more to control. Like I love the idea of like you buy what you need in a certain run rate of consumption, and that's all that's on your shelf. That way, let's say Ashley gets deathly ill and she's gone for, a week or something happens. It doesn't just sit there eating away at you to pay the bill without anything being done with it. I get really nervous about when I see practices who have, hundreds of cc's on the shelf. I'm like, to do what? Like you can't use that in a whole week. Like it's just sitting there. Just, it's the carrying cost of the goods. It makes me super nervous. So I love the idea they're doing like drop shipping, these like microsites. Like that's genius, because a lot of practices, to your point, they don't have the real estate. Like there's just not enough room in the practice to store all the stuff in bulk. And so I often wonder when the manufacturers will catch on to that, of saying, I'd rather you buy every single day than buy once a month in some giant quantity, right? Like, because I think if you're the practice manager walking into that room and seeing inventory just sitting on the shelf for days and days, even if we're draining it down, but we're not draining it down fast enough, I'm haunted by that. And I'm going to see the rep and be like, oh, we bought all your product and we can't sell any of it, which maybe we are selling it, but I don't know, because we bought so much that to make a dent in it, you can't even tell. So I love the idea of like this quick turn, buy it, sell it, buy it, sell it. The bills come and due before, you've already sold it before the bill ever comes due. I just think it's a much more, my psychological safety need really requires that, because I'm fearful of the whole COVID thing happening again, and people being, kind of hung out to dry with all this inventory and they can't sell any of it.
Right. And I think that one thing that Ashley did that's very smart is she has very low overhead, but especially with skincare products, we do at least like quarterly or seasonally skincare bundles. So we curate bundles based on the weather, what we're seeing in the area about people complaining. Are they too dry? Do they want, pigment concerns? Do they need sunscreen? So we'll curate these bundles and put products in there that, of course, make sense for them. But, if we have a little bit more of this than that might be a deciding factor too, so that it doesn't go to waste. We also do a lot of giveaways too. We're very active in the community. Ashley's very, she gives back a lot to the community. So, she'll curate bundles and give them away with a gift certificate. So, we kind of use them in more creative ways than probably the average bear. It's not just mail order and in-store purchases.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. For marketing, being in your community, being part of the community, I feel like people have an affinity to your brand because of that. And they would come in and say, because I know you guys gave to this organization or did this charitable event or, helped with this thing, I want to give back to you and, shop local and be part of your business as well. I think people underestimate the value of that and how important it is to have your name attached to good deeds. Obviously doing it for a good reason. I don't mean it like that, but when your name is attached to good deeds and you're doing good things, people want to reciprocate that, right? And come back in and be loyal to you as well as part of the community. But and thinking through all that, all the things that you are doing and, your ideas and your innovation. I know that you guys do some consulting. So give us an idea as we kind of wrap up here. If folks want to get a hold of you or of Ashley and learn about this model more and learn how to do it and what it means, like how much consulting can you or do you offer now? And is it part of your services with Aiyana? How do we get a hold of you and learn, pick your brain for all the things?
Absolutely. So on our website, www.aiyanaatelier.com, we have a specific tab, the training tab, and it details some of the services that we have. And you can just send an inquiry into that. And we have a kind of menu and laundry list of what we offer. So Ashley does private training, offsite and onsite. I do business consulting, virtual and in person. Ashley does consulting as well too for business. And we can kind of work with you to meet you where you are and see what your needs are. So I usually do like a little 5-minute phone consult just to see what your specific goals and concerns are. And we can kind of go from there. But the first step is going onto our website, going to that training tab and just filling out your information, and we'll get back to you.
And how does that look for practice who says, I want to do this with you, Brandon. I want to be part of this training service. Do you work with them like on their numbers, on just overall infrastructure and setup? Like what's an average consulting agreement kind of entail?
To be honest, it's so variable because especially with a virtual, a lot of things can happen in a 30-minute conversation. So it could go in one place and end up in a completely different number. But usually it's like, I'm in this area. This is my clientele. I don't know what I should do. Should I buy this? Should I do that? Should I hire this one? Do I really need this? So, depending on how granular you want to get, depends on, how much time and you want to invest in that consulting, half hour or more. So it's pretty variable, but we can really address a lot of broad concerns in a short amount of time. It just depends on how deep you want to get with it.
Yeah, I asked because I had 3 people come up to me at the conference at AMSPA saying, "Hey, can you help me start my practice? I need a practice consultant to start the practice." And I'm like, "No, I cannot. I cannot take that on. I'm sorry. I would love to help you, but I cannot do it." I think people are really, really desperate for that kind of help because, again, there's not a network, there's not a resource, there's not some big group exchanging ideas. So I think one of our takeaways from this podcast that we should start that in all of our free time. We should figure out how to organize some kind of a practice manager group where it's, a resource for like the things you should do to set it up. And I think AMSPA has some great things already in the works that they do. We have some things at Aesthetic Next. I think just personally, you and I have some things, there's lots of us out there who do this kind of thing. We should all get together and like a band of brothers and figure out a way to help people who are new to the industry to do it right. Because I think that we talk about the injections being wild, wild west all the time. Like, we're trying to make the injections safer, more effective. But I think the business setup is equally as big of a risk for us. The money, the way it changes hands, being compliant, all that is a business issue, not an injection issue. And so I think until we focus on the business in the same way we focus on the injectable part of it, we're never going to get to the place where we're truly sophisticated and mature. So someone out there who hears this, call me. Let's figure out a way to get this done because I feel like it's such a need. And, I think from what you're talking, from the feedback you had, just from what I hear, people really want it. So, Brandon, that's our task. Our Aries, put it on our Asana board, our ClickUp board. We got to get this thing done.
Absolutely. I'm 100%. Like we'll figure it out in our non-existent spare time, but it's definitely something that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Yes, if you guys are in the market for some help to figure out things that you're maybe missing or your blind spots, or just to get a really good gut check about your practice and where you are and if you're pacing correctly. I think Brandon's done so much in his historical business knowledge of, between software, between, being in medicine, that you could really shed a lot of light on a lot of things. So I hope you guys will reach out to them and certainly take advantage of that opportunity. But Brandon, tell us how to find you. And guys, I'll link Aiyana's website in the comments and in the podcast overview because it's hard to spell for me. So I'll make sure I link it so you guys can see it. But give us an idea of how to contact you directly from LinkedIn, all the places so that we can get a hold of you if we want to.
Absolutely. So the easiest way is to go to my Instagram. It's _aesthetic consultant. And I just made a link tree last week because I'm so not good at Instagram. I really need to get good at it. But I did add a link tree. So all the things are on there now.
Linktree is a lifesaver. You got to have a link tree. And then we'll see you at Aesthetic Next this year. I'm slowly but surely sending out all the abstract confirmation things to get everyone booked, because again, all the free time. But we'll definitely see you at Aesthetic Next. Hopefully doing a few podiums there, and hopefully getting our new practice manager group together for a cocktail or something, and maybe a little mini boot camp we can all get together. So I think we have some cool things this year for new practice managers that, the things we talked about today would be so impactful for them to hear and really understand that there is a way forward, that this is hard, but it does get easier as you get, kind of get your processes and things together. But what else is next for you besides those two meetings? Where are you going next?
So I think next, we're really going to focus on getting the Middleburg grand opening off next week. So very excited about that. Conference wise, I think going to do an AmSpa boot camp in Phoenix. Partially for pleasure, I'm not going to lie, because it is my birthday weekend, and it just happens to be in Phoenix on that weekend. So, but I also want to bring another practice manager that reached out and wants to learn a little bit more. I'm going to bring her and her owner to that meeting. So they're local to me in Pittsburgh, and very excited to attend that for their first time.
See, guys, make those connections. Your connections will help bring you through, network you through, and get you what you need to be successful. So, well, Brandon, thank you so much for coming on today. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and it makes me think about the future and get excited about innovation and what we can be doing here, because you have so much energy all the time. And congrats on the second location. I can't wait to see all the Instagram fodder over that. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. And for your big talk at AmSpa, I can't wait to see you in September. Hopefully it'll be here longer than I know it, because I need many days and hours to plan. But at the same time, I know it'll be a blink of an eye, and I'll see you again soon. So, but again, thank you for coming on. Any last thoughts?
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, for the record, you've been a great guest, and I will see all the rest of you next week for episode 56. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest, or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.